Prison. On the surface, a place of punishment and penance. But behind the scenes, hidden from the eyes of prison guards, a place of ingenuity and artistry.
It's an art form.
It represented the culture. It represented your beliefs.
In American prisons, a secret and illegal subculture of tattooing is thriving.
Tattooing is a very, very big part of prison culture.
Now for the first time, men who have lived and breathed prison tattooing will reveal the secrets that surround it. They'll unveil the methods of making the tattoo machines.
This is just your basic loader out of a CD player, whatever we can get our hands on.
And how to make the ink.
You cut that paper open, you got piles of black soot.
They'll outline the pitfalls.
If a person hasn't earned the tattoos he has on him, he's probably going to get going.
They'll explain how they evade detection by authorities.
There are some very unique, intelligent people in prison, and where there's a will, there's a way.
How tattooing drives the clandestine prison economy. And decode the hidden meaning behind the most feared prison tattoos.
The teardrops that I have are most commonly known as, for either murders or attempted murders.
From dramatic facial tattoos to being inked against your will. Welcome to the raw, real world of prison ink. Of the over 2 million prisoners behind bars in America, at least 50% are inked.
I like my tattoos are from either life experiences or what I've been through.
I'm covered, head to toe.
Prison tattoos can cover literally every inch of skin.
I got transferred to a different prison, so one person did this one, the other person did that.
Long considered the mark of the outsider and the outlaw, tattoos hold special significance to prison inmates.
Oh, look at that King Tiger tank.
My body's a mural, and it has a story that can go over for days.
But actually getting ink behind bars means breaking the law.
It's not allowed to tattoo in prison.
Because of the risk of infection, tattooing in U.S. prisons is illegal. This forbidden status means no professional inks and equipment are allowed, giving rise to a unique style of single needle tattooing known as black and gray.
Black and gray tattoo emerged simply based on the limits of the technology. They did not have the access to multiple needles. They didn't have access to real tattoo needles.
In your average tattoo shop, the artists are using sophisticated coil or rotary machines. Precision coil devices can cost up to $700 each and are intricately crafted.
The tattoo machine basically is made up of springs, coils, capacitors, copper pieces, front springs, rubber bands. Basically what it does is you hook it to a power supply. So when electricity pushes it down, the magnetic part pushes it back up. Depending on what you're doing, you use different needle groupings. Basically, that's the rundown of a tattoo machine.
But in prison, where tattooing is banned and most of the components of a tattoo machine are considered contraband, how do inmates manage to create such amazing works of art on their skin?
Inmates behind bars can make almost anything if they put their minds to it. It's fascinating what they can come up with.
The ingenuity begins with the construction of a makeshift tattoo machine, using whatever inmates can get their hands on.
So, with pretty much every prison tattoo machine I've ever seen or I've ever made consists of a regular pen, and on the inside there's a pen filler, which you take out.
Convicted of assault, 27-year-old David Chance is an accomplished prison-style tattooist. He's revealing his techniques on camera for the first time.
What we're doing is making a needle runner with this. And this is the barrel. This is where your needle's going in and it's coming out this end.
Guitar string is used as a needle which will puncture the skin and deliver the ink.
You use what you have. And in there, I mean, we're limited. We're allowed CD players. We're allowed musical instruments. So those are two things that you need right there to make a prison tattoo machine.
Driving the tattoo machine is a small motor.
And this is just a basic motor out of a CD player, out of a tape player, a boombox, whatever we can get our hands on. There's motors and anything.
The guitar string is sharpened on sandpaper and tested to see if it pierces the top layer of skin. David then makes a cam, a rotating disc from the pen's ink tube. This will be the connection between the motor and the needle.
So I'm going to heat up a little piece of guitar string and I'm going to poke a needle in there, which is what this is going to rest in. And when it rotates, the needle's going with it.
The pen barrel needle holder is then attached to the motor, and the sharpened needle slotted into the barrel. Power to drive the tattoo machine comes courtesy of an adapted plug or batteries.
And it fits right in your hand, super small, the little tattoo machine. You can do the whole back piece with this.
Because prison tattoo guns only have one needle, as opposed to multiple needles in professional machines, to do a whole back piece could take weeks. But before the artist gets started, he has another task that will test his ingenuity. Making the ink.
Making the ink was interesting. It was definitely dirty.
33-year-old Carl Grace started tattooing behind bars during his first prison term at just 18. He becomes a master of making his own ink, but the process creates hazardous fumes.
Luckily, they sold fans in prison, so I would get two. But I'd get like an empty tuna can, I'd fill it up with baby oil, poke a hole through the center of like the lid, and then I'd get like a brand new mop strand. And I'd stuff it in there on like an old-fashioned wick, throw some baby oil on it and light it, and it would smoke like crazy, like black soot. And we just take our lunch bags, you know, I get a brown bag every day for lunch, and just fold it nice and neat right over it. And it would burn for 6 hours, and when you're done, man, you cut that paper open, you got piles of black soot. And then we just mix that up with a chapstick cap of VO5 and like 5 caps of water and get some ink. I don't know how healthy it is for you, but I got it all over me, and I'm all right.
Petroleum-based products are used because they catch fire easily and burn for a sustained period. The reason shampoo is added is as a binding agent for the soot. But there's more than one way to make ink. And every artist has his special formula.
My favorite was chess pieces. You'd grab the chess pieces, you'd burn them up, and the soot that would go up in the air, you'd catch them on a piece of paper, and you'd scrape it off and then add water to it. Or some people's burn newspaper, you know, because some people said there was more carbon in the paper, so the ink would be black.
Because the homemade ink is made from burnt petroleum, it only comes in black, which is why all prison tattoos are black or gray.
With the homemade ink, that's all you have is black and then shades of black.
With a prison-made tattoo machine and homemade ink, the inmate is ready to start tattooing. But now comes the most difficult element of the prison ink process: mastering the craft.
If you don't have that craft and you can't lay that ink right, you can't get those blends, it's gonna be a rough road, you know?
When David Chance decided he wanted to be a prison tattooist, he didn't dare start on human skin.
I was engraving cups. I was just doing cups at the time, passing time.
In time, his cups got noticed by his cellmate.
He kind of talked me into it. He's like, dude, he was like, I've seen the cups that you do. I've seen the engravings. I've seen all that stuff. You need to do it. I got bored one day, and sure enough, I wound up tattooing on a guy, and I was just obsessed ever since then.
In prison for 6 years for arson, Ryan Lewis taught himself to tattoo by using his own skin as a canvas.
Yeah, I actually tattooed my chest. One of my buddy did one side of my chest, and I ended up doing the rest of it. It was just really like leaning down and just dying for a few hours, and I did it, I think, over the course of a week. And it was really intricate, a lot of line work, and like from the first line, I was just like, what am I doing to myself?
Learning the craft takes years of experience. Something Josh Hagen had none of when his cellmate talked him into trying to tattoo.
At the time, I hadn't even thought about tattooing. I just drew a lot. He's like, hey, tattoo me, bro. For the couple days, I was like, nah, I'm not really into that, you know? Then he finally talked me into it. Tattooed him, and it took him like 3 months to heal up. I scabbed the guy and just ruined his shit.
According to convicted armed robber Derek Sanders, inmates who decide to get tattoos should first check the artist as a master of his equipment and his craft.
Some people are good, some people are bad, some people are just beginning, just testing the waters. But basically what I did before I got my tattoos, I watched other people, watched them perform their art on other people. And I made that my decision of who I would, choose to do my tattoos.
But even when you've nailed the equipment and the craft, there are other pitfalls waiting in the world of prison tattoos. The little-known world of prison tattooing is a subculture all of its own. Some designs are art for art's sake, but others are symbols that can hold life or death significance. Getting inked without understanding the hidden language of prison tattoos is a definite health risk.
So if an individual wants a tattoo, they'd better be real sure that they're not going to offend somebody.
Richard Lichten is a 30-year law enforcement veteran who works in America's most violent prisons. He says prison gangs enforce many of the rules behind bars, including those surrounding tattoos.
Your white power gangs and your black gangs and your Hispanic gangs and Asians. Gangs are very, very prevalent, very, very dangerous. If you're in a gang and you get the gang's tattoo, then you have elevated yourself within that prison system. It's a mark of respecting that you now carry their tattoo.
In some prisons, it's estimated that 60% of tattoos are gang-related. They mark the wearer as protected, but also as a target.
I got my tattoos in prison. I got XIV, X4 for Northerners.
The Northerners are a Hispanic gang from Northern California. Their gang symbol is the Roman numeral for 14, signifying the 14th letter of the alphabet, N. The Norteños' sworn enemy are the Sureños, or Southerners prison gang, who wear the tattoo Sur, Spanish for South.
If there's a lot of Southerners around, they'll hit me up and stuff like that, or try to kill me for that.
Gang tattoos can be as simple as a series of numbers. Michael Torres' 916 tattoo is the area code where he grew up in Northern California, but can also show affiliation to the Norteños prison gang.
People from the opposite gang, gang members in general, know what it is, see what it is, and they can move on that,
As well as showing gang membership, tattoos can also broadcast crimes carried out in the gang's name. One of the most common examples is the teardrop.
The teardrops that I have are most commonly known as, for either murders or attempted murders.
A teardrop can mean different things depending on which prison you're in. On the left, it can mean murders or attempted murders committed. On the right, it could stand for loved ones lost. An outline teardrop can symbolize an inmate is ready to kill for a gang. The drop will be filled in once the murder is committed. Another tattoo linked with violence is the tombstone.
I've seen several people with tattoos where they may have an X or maybe they have tombstone, and those basically stand for people who they've killed.
Among some prison gangs, tattoos of lips can denote they are kissed by the gang. Lips inked in black can stand for the kiss of death, meaning the wearer is ready to kill. 3 dots can stand for La Vida Loca, or My Crazy Life. While 5 dots indicates a history of incarceration. The 4 points symbolize the 4 walls of the prison, and the 5th is the inmate himself. On a spiderweb tattoo, each strand can stand for a year of a prisoner's sentence. Other tattoos that can indicate prison time are a clock with no hands to signify a long stretch, and the comedy tragedy mask, Smile Now, Cry Later.
The Laugh Now, Cry Later tattoos pretty much just represents that you can't really do anything about your situation, so laugh about it now, you can cry about it later.
For white gang members, racist symbols like swastikas or SS bolts can also be a sign that the wearer has committed a hit.
It displays where you're at, what you've done, basically your hierarchy while you're locked up.
Yeah, when you earn tattoos, it's mostly, violence.
33-year-old Carl Grace knows that from experience. He earned tattoos by being an enforcer for a white gang.
Put in some work. There was some dude from my area that I don't know, he wasn't up to par with the white boy standards, and so I smashed him on the yard. Went to the hole for 3 months.
When he got out of the hole, Carl continued earning tattoos.
When somebody came to the yard and they needed to be dealt with, I was like this. I'll do it. I'll hit them, I have like a huge crucified skinhead on my side that I earned for handling some business on the yard that I was pretty proud of at the time.
Carl says the majority of these tattoos are earned not through gang-on-gang, but intra-gang violence.
This guy messed up, he's got to be dealt with, and somebody's got to do it. It's mostly like in-house cleanup all the time. That's how you earn tattoos. I mean, that's how you're supposed to.
Not everyone knows the secret code of tattoo meanings, and for those who break it, there are penalties.
If a person hasn't earned the tattoos he has on him, he's probably going to get dealt with,
One time, an individual thought he would get himself a white power tattoo. He was not a member of that gang. Well, they came to him with a knife and they said, you either cut it off your arm right now or we're going to cut it off. And the inmates wound up cutting it off for him.
According to David Chance, the punishment can also be dealt to whoever created the unearned tattoo.
It falls back on the artist. Well, who did that? Oh, where did he do that? When did you deserve that tattoo,
I refuse to do all the racial swastikas and bolts and stuff like that, because you got to earn that stuff, and then get me in trouble if I'm just passing it out.
While gang affiliation guides the choice of some tattoos, behind bars, an equally strong influence is race.
Every nationality leans more towards their heritage. Like the white folks, you got them more towards the Aryan, more medieval. As where the Mexicans, you got the Aztecs and stuff. And you got the blacks, they do the black rights movements and stuff like that.
White prisoners like Carl Grace favor very macabre images.
I have a lot of demons. People in prison aren't happy. Nobody wants angels. Nobody wants butterflies. People want demons. They want skulls. They want death. Especially the white boys. That's what we're into. We're into the crazy.
Ryan Lewis has Native American heritage, which is reflected in his prison ink.
Kind of my path, it's a band from our tribe. It's like it's a basket design and an oak leaf, which is pretty central. I got Black Elk, who's kind of like a native prophet that was telling, the people of the Lakota to go back to their old ways, to relearn their old ways, to teach their children these ways.
Inmate tattoos can also be personal, like an autobiography etched into skin.
The demon here that's chained to the wall kind of stands for being locked or chained down to your addiction. The drugs, meth was always my weakness.
Prison ink can tell of struggles in the past or dreams for the future.
My dad was an Iron Horseman in his younger days, and he'd always ridden Harleys, so I wanted to buy myself a Harley. And I figured, well, if I get it tattooed on me, then I'll have to get one when I get out.
Sometimes your tattoo choice is going to refer to the life that you left behind. Sometimes it's going to refer to the life that you're going to want to get to on the outside. Sometimes it just refers to the prison life that you're leading right here.
But what drives an inmate to get heavily tattooed on their face? America's prisons are home to a secret tattooing culture that flourishes despite being illegal. And some inmates take prison ink to the extreme, covering their whole body, even their face.
The face is the most public part of the human body. The face is the way that we present ourselves to the world. So a prisoner with a face tattoo is saying F you.
Convicted Utah murderer Curtis Algier's prison tattoos are saying a lot more than that. Algier killed a corrections officer, and his mugshot has been called the Face of Hate because of its neo-Nazi and white supremacist symbolism. As well as swastikas and iron crosses, he has more coded indicators of his extremism, such as the 88, which, because H is the 8th letter of the alphabet, stands for Heil Hitler. On his cheeks, he has the Valknot, a Norse symbol with 3 interlocking triangles that shows a willingness to die for a cause. Latin American gang members are also known to commonly wear facial tattoos to increase their intimidating appearance. This inmate displays the Roman numerals XV3, coded symbol of the 18th Street Gang.
It's like war paint in prison, you know, that's why people get all that crazy on their face and neck, you know, they want to look nutty, you know, they want to look crazy.
But sometimes a facial tattoo can also have more personal resonance. Asa Crow kicked a heroin habit behind bars, something he's reminded of every time he looks in the mirror and sees his chin tattoo.
The fish represent, you know, serenity or calmness, you know, and the dots kind of represent my mind and my body and my soul, you know, just kind of, I had to get control of all of that before I, you know, paroled was my goal.
Whether an inmate is inked for his extreme beliefs, his gang, or his own story, he's taking big risks by getting tattooed behind bars.
The tattoo kit, the tattoo gun, is contraband like anything else, and it's against the jail rules. The guards will seize that contraband, and then you're spending some time in what's called discipline. The inmates would call it the hole.
Yet prisoners' desire for tattoos is so strong, solitary confinement isn't much deterrent.
I went to the hole like 4 or 5 times. My mentality was kind of like, you, I'm gonna do what I want, and if you don't like it, I don't care.
Carl Grace's cellmate, Josh Hagan, is caught tattooing twice by prison guards. He's slapped with an extra 60 days on his 7-year sentence. What hurts more than that? The confiscation of his tattoo machine.
Yeah, the thing is, you get this nice little setup that you spend a whole bunch of time trying to put together, and they take it away. And then now you got to like go out to the yard and try and hustle up new parts to put this thing back together, and that was a pain in the ass.
Your cell gets tore up and your whole situation gets tore up. You lose all your equipment and ink and all that.
To keep tattooing behind bars, inmates have to find somewhere to hide their kit.
We had 2 electrical outlets and they were, you know, bolted into the wall. And my cellie had access to the tool that we could loosen these bolts up. And in this box had this perfect compartment where you can hide tattoo machines, dough, weapons, whatever you want.
It's hidden the same way you'd hide a prison weapon or narcotics, within mattresses, within cracks in the wall, inside of a toilet, because there's 1,000 places to hide it.
I had a magnet on the back of mine, so you just throw it up under a bunk, and it's hidden. And you kick back like you're watching TV.
The majority of prison tattoos are done in the cells, which means while laying ink, inmates need to appoint a lookout.
The process is that you have like a point man that would keep eyes for you to make sure that they don't walk up in on you.
But with harsh penalties for being caught tattooing, what makes being a prison tattoo artist worth the risk? The first answer to that question is status.
Being a tattoo artist in prison definitely gives you a lot more merit. A lot of people want to be your friend.
Getting tattooed by the guy that did the best work in there, it was an honor.
Not only does being a tattoo artist boost your social standing in the joint, it allows you to become a major player in the clandestine prison economy.
Prison's like a city, you know, so everybody's got their little job. My tattoo, that's my job. You want a tattoo, you come see me. You want a drawing, you come see me. That's how I sustain myself.
If it was a straight up business transaction, whatever they can get from the store, food, cosmetics.
Somebody needs to get tattooed. You're like, yeah, just throw me a jar of coffee, $6 right there, and you tattoo them for 20 minutes, and that's good.
If you can smoke, you can get tobacco, you get tobacco. If you're a dope head, you can get dope.
But if an inmate wants to enjoy the spoils and status of being a prison tattoo artist and stay alive, he has to learn to respect the secret codes of conduct. Codes that are specific to each prison.
In jails or prisons, there are written rules that you get. No escaping, no fighting, no swearing, and that sort of thing. But there are many, many unwritten rules as well that are just as important to your safety and welfare.
In Asa Crow's prison, the unwritten rules made it forbidden to tattoo across certain racial and gang lines.
Definitely couldn't tattoo the blacks. That'd be a death sentence. Couldn't tattoo the Norteños. It's also a death sentence. Did tons of any gang you can think of from Southern California, from Bakersfield down, I did it. Every gang. So, I mean, I had all these people in my cell, murderers, kidnappers, drug dealers, you name it. I tattooed them all.
Behind bars, prison tattooists ply their trade for drugs, for status, and for the pure thrill of artistic expression. But some artists will rise above the rest. In the tough, deadly underbelly of America's prisons, a little-known and illegal subculture is thriving. Black and gray tattooing.
My tattoos were made with makeshift guns. Motors would be taken out of radios and cassette players.
But sometimes a prison tattooist can't get the equipment he needs to build a makeshift tattoo machine. Time to go back to basics. Stick and poke is a raw form of tattooing involving a sharp point to pierce the skin. Once, all tattoos behind bars were done this way. Today, it's a method more often used in county jails, where contraband materials are harder to obtain.
Sometimes you couldn't get a machine, you couldn't get nothing. You grabbed a little piece of metal, sewing needle, whatever you could. Just hand poke it, just push that ink in.
You can't achieve any sort of depth or anything like that with the stick and poke, but I mean, you can pound ink into the skin with a nail if you wanted to.
Prison tattoo artist Mark Martin used paper clips or staples as needles.
You get them in paperwork that your lawyer brought. You can see them on the floor that maybe a guard dropped.
Crude as the method is, some of the finest prison tattoo artists started their career with stick and poke. Even the man considered the godfather of prison style, Freddie Negretti.
I was doing pretty big tattoos, just hand poking, and on all my homeboys. It's like whenever we got a chance, I'd be hand poking on them.
Freddie's rise from gangbanger kid to famed prison-style tattooist begins in LA's San Gabriel district in the 1960s, when he joins his neighborhood gang, Sangre.
I guess I grew up kind of a confused, troubled youth, got in a lot of trouble.
Getting into trouble changes Freddie's life forever. In juvenile court, he meets a Mexican kid covered in tattoos.
I was like, what are these tattoos? What does this mean? And I was just obsessed with this guy. I remember he told me, yeah, you get a needle and thread, and you dip it in ink, or you can even use a girl's mascara, So I got out and I got my older sister's mascara. And that night I pitched a little tent in my bed with a flashlight, and I hand poked this little thing on my hand.
As Freddy grows up, his gang crimes get more serious. He finds himself in juvenile prison and begins forging his own tattoo style, rejecting the colored tattoos popular in tattoo shops.
First of all, we thought that color tattoos were cartoony. Shop tattoos had the thick lines and they were simple designs. We felt that it was more real if you had thinner lines and less of a line showing. And the tones of gray, because what we were trying to accomplish was like a black and white photograph. So shading and fine lines was a big thing for us. And that's what black and gray is all about.
Behind bars, Freddy realizes the limitations of prison-style machines. Straight lines are impossible because the needles wobble, so Freddy innovates.
I came up with just a matchbook paper to go over and then tape it around the side of the machine, and it held the needle steady. And so our line work was coming out much better and straighter. And then for shading, I would take it off because it was okay to have the needle wobbling around because we just made circular motions,
Freddy also experiments with ink production to give him a range of black and gray tones.
Another thing that we did was to get the ink and evaporate the water out, and it would make a blacker, denser ink. And also to add a little bit of baby oil or water to the ink to make it lighter, like a lighter gray. So we were coming up with different tones of gray.
The results of Freddy's innovations are classic Hispanic images like the Chara Girl and the Virgin of Guadalupe. Then in 1976, Freddy develops a tattoo that will become a Chicano classic. Smile now, cry later.
I saw a little ad for an acting workshop, and there was the comedy tragedy faces right there. Well, my favorite song at the time was Smile Now, Cry Later. It was the oldie but goodie song. And when I saw those, I immediately thought of Smile Now, Cry Later.
Behind bars, Freddy builds a reputation as a master prison tattooist. But his rise to become the godfather of prison style will be tainted by tragedy. Former Chicano gangbanger Freddy Negrete is a pioneer of black and gray tattooing. The secret of his success? Learning to tattoo behind bars.
The prisons is like the meeting ground of the minds, and a lot of culture and style came from prison.
Caught up in Chicano gang wars, Freddy first starts tattooing in Youth Authority Prison in the 70s. Using handmade tattoo machines and self-produced ink, he devises a fine line black and gray look that defines prison style to this day. But what he never expected was that prison-style tattooing could give him a lucrative career on the outside.
And when I finally got released and I started tattooing just, out of my apartment, I found a huge market, right there, and I charged like $15 for a big tattoo. So I had a huge clientele.
In the 70s and 80s, tattooing comes of age, gaining mainstream acceptance. Freddy begins working at East LA tattoo shop, Good Time Charlie's.
I knew all the main guys from all the gangs all across LA, and I was respected by them. And so as soon as I started at Good Time Charlie's, it was on.
By the late 1990s, tattooing is a booming industry, becoming a multi-billion-dollar market, with thousands of shops nationwide. customers who want ink crave the cachet of an artist who learned to tattoo behind bars.
You know, I'm from prison, I'm from a street gang, you know, and to see it become this global phenomenon is, overwhelming for me.
As a famous tattoo artist, Freddie rides the crest of a wave. But a personal tragedy will bring him crashing down.
My son Lorenzo, passed away. He was actually shot. He was murdered, and it was devastating for me.
Distraught, Freddie slides into drug addiction. And by 2004, he's back behind bars.
I pioneered this style of tattooing. I made a livelihood out of it for all these years, but now I was back in prison, using this little homemade machine and tattooing for soup.
Locked up, despair sets in. Until the day Freddie decides to change his life in honor of his son who passed away.
If he could see me, how would he want to see me? A loser on drugs, dying in prison, Or would he want to see me a success,
Freddie beats the drugs and is released in 2006. He memorializes the son he lost with a tattoo of his nickname, Frosty.
But I've really learned to deal with his death, to live with it, remember him, love him.
Now working in Mark Mahoney's Shamrock Tattoo Parlor in LA. Freddie's clientele includes Hollywood actors and rock stars. And he's passed the skill of tattooing onto his other son, Isaiah.
My first tattoo my dad did when I was 14. I got a smile mark highlighter on my chest. Same one he has on his chest. It seemed right to get a matching one.
It's like, I'm still me, just this little guy, but people, when I meet them from other countries and stuff, and they're like, oh, one of the fathers of Black and Gray and stuff, and I'm like, man, I'm just, old gangster, that's it. Just doing my thing that I learned in prison.
Freddie has paved the way. Now other prison tattooists are learning that all those years spent tattooing behind bars can pay off.
He's kind of influenced a lot of people, including myself, in the tattoo industry.
When prison tattooist David Chance was released, he found a ready market for his expertise in Central California.
I got into a shop within 6 months of being out, and now I'm in one of the best shops on the Central Coast, and it's great.
Meanwhile in Phoenix, former prison tattoo artist Sam H. has also found his skills in demand. Despite becoming a respected Black and Gray tattooist, he still uses a gun that resembles the one he had in prison.
In prison, we use a machine that's basically a rotary tattoo machine. And the machines that most tattoo artists use now is a coil machine. But I still use a rotary tattoo machine, which is basically a glorified prison machine. And I can do things with this machine that I can do with a prison machine, except 100 times better. I just feel it. It's my roots. I started off with a homemade machine, Walkman motor, guitar string, dipping it in some Pelican, and still what I use today.
But while prison tattoos are a springboard for success for some, in other cases, they're just the opposite. Prison tattoos, forged in adversity. These marks of identity can have a dark side, especially when applied against an inmate's will. In 2006, a convicted child murderer in an Indiana prison was inked by force. The words "Katie's Revenge" were tattooed into his forehead by another inmate. Katie was the name of his 10-year-old victim.
Prisons and jails are very, very dangerous places with some very, very dangerous individuals that reside in them.
But there are other perils in this world of prison tattoos. Less obvious, but no less dangerous.
there's no way to sterilize while you're in prison. So therefore, you got a high risk of hepatitis, AIDS, staph infection.
Even outside prison, tattooing carries a risk of bloodborne diseases and infection. But among inmates, rates of infection of HIV are 4 times higher than the general population, and hepatitis C up to 10 times higher. And nothing transmits bloodborne disease better than a tattoo needle. But some inmates say you can minimize the risk.
But when I tattooed, every time I tattooed somebody new, I would make a new setup for them because, you know, I wasn't that guy that was like, oh, let me pour bleach down this tube and like clean it up and like use it on somebody else. Like, because that's pretty gross, you know, because I don't care what people think, but bleach doesn't kill everything, you know? So like every single person I tattoo, I'd have to make a new setup for them.
Incarcerated for 11 years, Art Powell received many tattoos, but always provided the needles and ink himself.
I kept my needles. I watched them clean the guns. I kept my own ink. I kept all my stuff because, you know, I knew it was a possibility that could happen. So I took those measures not to make sure it didn't happen to me.
But even if you avoid contamination, there are other downsides to getting prison ink. And they start outside the prison gates. The streets of West Atlanta. 25 years ago, they were the scene of a bloody gang turf war. And right at the center of it was this man.
People would call me Trigger because I was known for shooting people.
The story of Art Powell's life of crime is etched in his skin.
I got involved in the streets at the age of 13. I started gangbanging at the age of 15, back in 1984.
By the late 80s, Art Powell is a high-ranking member of one of the most notorious gangs in Atlanta history, I Refuse Posse.
We controlled the southwest side of Atlanta, tried to take over the city. Was involved in a lot of crimes, and a lot of the cases I was involved in were high-publicity cases.
By the early 90s, Arts joined another gang called Do or Die Mafia and winds up in prison.
We basically was robbing businesses, and we robbed the business and it went bad. And one of my co-defendants was shot. And that's pretty much, that incident is what sent me to prison for 11 and a half years.
Like many inmates, Art gets his first ink behind bars and can't stop.
I got my first tattoo and it was like an addiction. Well, with the Do or Die Mafia tattoo, that was the name of my crew I was with when I got incarcerated. So I got that tattoo, you know, as a symbol to say, okay, you know, this is who I'm with and this has put me in a position to be incarcerated.
Now released, Art's on a mission to stop other kids following his path.
I helped form one of the most notorious gangs in Atlanta history called I Refuse Posse. And a lot of people died, a lot of people was incarcerated.
One of his messages, tattoos can be a first step to a life of crime and incarceration.
How many of y'all ever thought about getting tattoos? Be honest, this is just thought, like you had the thought of getting a tattoo. Okay, don't get it. Once they see my tattoos, they ask questions, and I look at that as a door or an opportunity to communicate with them. And don't get them. It's a brand you have to wear. It gives people an opportunity to stereotype you. It gives people the opportunity to deny you.
Art believes the stigma of having a tattoo can limit your opportunities, making crime a more attractive path and prison a more likely destination. And studies show a link between tattoos and crime after prison too. Ex-prisoners with tattoos are over 40% more likely to violently reoffend than those without tattoos.
According to the study, yes, the person with the tattoos who left prison is more likely to reoffend, both because his tattoos make him less employable and less acceptable in mainstream society. But I would also say that once he started putting those tattoos on in prison, he was already saying, society doesn't want me, and so I'm going to go ahead and reoffend.
Matt Wilcher was recently released from prison after serving time for assault and probation violations. All but one of his tattoos he got in prison.
Got both sleeves, got my chest done, got my back done. My left forearm, I did it myself.
Now, Matt needs a job. But some employers don't want to hire ex-cons, especially those with visible tattoos.
I can wear a long sleeve shirt, and they won't see none of these. You notice I have none on my neck or face.
But Matt has a very visible tattoo on his left hand. So he's going to get it removed. He comes to see Mark Martin. Mark is a former prison tattooist who now has his own tattoo shop in Georgia. He removes ex-inmates' tattoos for free.
It's hard enough when somebody gets out of prison for people trying to take them seriously. But then when you come out and you're covered with tattoos, I mean, it's even harder. It's hard to get a job. It's pretty much hard to do anything.
The process involves breaking the tattooed area of skin with a conventional tattoo machine.
It's a bloody process. After you tear up over the area where you can actually start to see the ink, you put the ink eraser on top. Stuff's gonna burn. This is ink eraser, and that's gonna be bringing the particles of ink to the surface and to the scab.
For complete removal of his tattoo, Matt will require anything between 8 and 12 sessions. But if you're a former member of a prison gang, there's even more reason to get your tattoos removed. Gang tattoos not only prevent you getting work, they could get you killed.
And my tattoos of gangs, my evil ways, girls and stuff like that.
Ex-Norteño gang member Henry is getting his tattoos removed with a laser to avoid conflict with rival gangs.
They'll hit me up and stuff like that, or try to kill me for the stupidity that I put on my body.
Yeah.
All right. Let's take these guys off so you can see. Right?
Laser treatment is faster than tattoo gun removal. But it still hurts. While for some, prison tattoos are a source of regret, to others, the secrets and risks of this hidden subculture are part of the attraction.
Tattooing would give me the opportunity to get my mind away from the prison. And I was fortunate enough to have something that would release me from that.
From learning to make the equipment, to becoming fluent in the subculture's hidden codes, prison tattooing doesn't give up its secrets easily. But to many, it's an art form that flourishes even in the most hostile of environments. And a subculture that performed the ultimate escape act by scaling the prison walls.
Us little gang members, you know, even though people hated us so bad for the bad things we did, we gave the world beautiful tattoos and beautiful art.